Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Adjectiveless X-Men number 15, cover dated December 1992, and this is part 7 of the 12-part X-Cutioner song crossover. So the cover here pretty striking, by Andy Kubert, inked by Mark Pennington, featuring Strife torturing Cyclops and Jean Grey, which he's been doing over previous installments of the crossover. Here to the right of the cover we have the Skybox card that came originally polybagged with this issue. Polybag is long gone, of course. And this particular card from Strife's strike file features the Hunters, the MLF. So we've got an image there by Greg Capullo, inked by Harry Candelario, and coloured by Paul Mounts, featuring Zero, Reaper, and Forearm of the MLF. If I turn over the card, we get some of the text from Strife's strike file. What does the general say to his troops when he knows they're being led on a suicide mission? How does his conscience twist and turn in the darkness? And then the concluding paragraph: it bothers me, if only for a moment, but time has a way of blanketing all wounds in its soothing embrace, and in time I won't care. So that's Strife's sentiment regarding his team, the MLF, the Mutant Liberation Front. So let's take that away and open up the comic itself to our splash page. So this picks up immediately from the end of X Factor 85, where Reaper here was standing over the knocked out Quicksilver and Gambit, ready to use his scythe lethally on the pair. And so our story title here is The Candle's Back, and the creative team: Fabian Nicieza, writer; Andy Kubert, penciler; Mark Pennington, inker; Chris Eliopoulos, letterer; and Joe Rosas, colorist. So let's continue and see what happens exactly. So he's getting ready to decapitate the pair of them with one blow, and he's interrupted by Havoc. So nice anchor image here of Havoc, and throughout this issue we'll see Andy Kubert prioritizing anchor images, having studied the likes of Jim Lee on the title before his tenure, and he's doing his own version of Jim Lee's anchor images. So back to the story though, Havoc interrupts Reaper. So Reaper misses Gambit and Quicksilver, and he smells the plasma, so he knows it's Havoc. But before he can act, he is taken out by Psylocke and her Psyblade. And we have an anchor image here, Andy Kubert doing a pretty cool Psylocke pose. But we also have Fabian Nicieza having a bit of fun here via Boom Boom's dialogue. Yeah, well, nice pose and all, Psylocke, but after Psyblading him, there ain't much on Reap's mind at all, and won't be on yours either unless you. And so she sends off some of her time bombs. Psylocke ducking here, and why is that? It's because Forearm has been creeping up behind her, and Boom Boom says, I know how tough it is for all that ninja training to spot those sneaky Forearm guys. So the question is whether Nicieza is having a bit of a laugh in relation to Kubert's art, and maybe how the storytelling is suffering a little because of the prioritization of these kinds of anchor images. But pretty funny anyway, nonetheless. And the art does look cool too. So then we see, excuse me, we see Polaris, Storm, and Rogue going after Dragoness. They took her down in X Factor 85, but Dragoness is obviously back on her feet and up in the air. And so Storm, this is a pretty cool image of Storm using her lightning bolt on Dragoness, and then Polaris discerns that Dragoness's wings are mechanical, and so her only mutant power, as Rogue infers, is her biostings. So the three X-Women acting in unison basically take out Dragoness. And then we got this nice little character bit here with Thumbelina and Slab, where Thumbelina is aghast because she says that Dragoness was her only friend in the MLF, but her brother moves acts to get the pair of them out of there, except that Iceman catches them and freezes them in place. And I think that Andy Kubert does a good job on Iceman, combined with Joe Rosas colors. Iceman looks pretty cool. And then we have two New Mutants, Cannonball and Boom Boom, going after two other former New Mutants, Rusty and Skids here. And basically Cannonball takes out Rusty, and Skids gets a boot in the face to Boom Boom, which actually breaks her jaw. So this is an interesting bit of dialogue here. You broke my jaw, and so on and so forth, but she threatens her with some time bombs. And a bit of a joke here from Cannonball, where he basically says it's incredible, even with a broken jaw she can't shut up. What a gal. Cannonball is pretty sure that their former teammates on the New Mutants have been brainwashed, and Boom Boom concurs, so Cannonball punches Rusty out. And then we pick up with Rogue, and here we've got Strobe. Now, this particular page looks like it was inked at speed, so some of the pages look like there was more time taken over them, some of them a bit rougher. This one looks a bit rough to me, to my eye, but it's pretty kinetic. There's pretty good action on this page. What happens here is that Strobe uses her power to blind Rogue, and Rogue's blindness will last for a few more issues. But Polaris takes Strobe out using her costume against her metallic costume against her. And then we have this little moment between Iceman and Archangel, you know, original X-Men, members of X-Factor 2 subsequently. And Iceman saying, you know, he wants to talk with Archangel about the accident he had with Kamikaze. That's in X-Factor 85, when Warren's wings took out Kamikaze, decapitated him, and Iceman says they're going to talk about it later after the fight. Then we've got a nice little moment here between the three leaders of the X-Men Gold Team, Storm, Cannonball, X-Force, and Havoc, X-Factor, where Havoc says, "All done, finished," says Storm. "The Mutant Liberation Front can no longer be considered a threat." And Cannonball says, "We should have done this months ago." And Alex says, "You should have asked, kid." So, you know, the MLF taken out in the space of half an issue of the comic. But a pretty cool fight nonetheless. And also, you know, Strife wasn't around to lead the troops, and Zero wasn't around to teleport them away. But now Storm has got prisoners to question, and she basically says, they had best help us find Strife. So then we go back to our trio of Wolverine, Bishop and Cable in Canada, and they've made it all the way to the coast of Newfoundland, and they have been hunted by Dept K to the coast. So they're on the cliff's edge here, and what is going to happen next? Well, let's get past this ad. What happens is that Cable decides to body slide them to Graymalkin, which is his ship orbiting the Earth. So that's them out of danger. And then our scene switches to the X-Mansion. We've got Colossus here in a funk and removing some junk from the lake, Breakstone Lake. And he's thinking about his brother, and why his brother committed suicide. Why did you take your own life? Mikhail, how can I go back to our parents, to the little sister you never even met, and tell them that I found you only to lose you again? So he's got no answer to that, but he is interrupted by Strong Guy, who's brought him some coffee, a fine blend, as he says, Hawaiian hazelnut, mocha cream, and Jack Daniels. And then Colossus, switching to human form, says, "Do you have good news to tell me?" "Yup," says Strong Guy. "I put too much JD in here." So, good news indeed. And then we switch into the infirmary underneath the X-Mansion. We've got Beast back in the infirmary looking over Professor X, who has been infected by this techno-organic virus. And he's talking here with Moira. So the professor's condition is stable. Nothing they do has had any effect on the virus, but neither is his condition getting worse. And in the midst of this, Beast ponders whether it might be better if he had stayed in the lab for the whole world, if I may be so bold, if I were to concentrate more on my talents in biogenetics and less on gallivanting around as an X-Man. And indeed, that is pretty much the direction that the Beast would take in subsequent years, not really going out on missions and staying more back in the lab, and in particular when the legacy virus becomes a plot point in the X-Men books. And then, you know, we see here this concluding panel of Professor X infected by the virus. And when I was preparing to make the video, I was looking at this panel and trying to think, is he upside down? What way is anything going on here? And then ultimately I saw, okay, yeah, here's his nostrils, this is his nose, and here's his eye. So the techno-organic virus is covering his form. So like his face is obscured by it. But that's what it is. If you're wondering what's going on here in this panel, that's the eye and that's his nose and nostril there. And then we switch to Strife and Zero. As he called Zero, he addresses him as his silent knight. And of course, like every good arch-villain, he is reviewing a bank of monitors that are informing him of what the various pieces on his chessboard are up to. So we see Wolverine, Bishop and Cable there. We see the MLF captive, but we also see Shatterstar here. So he wasn't, this is a bit of a continuity error, I think, because what's he doing there? Then we've got, well, we'll see what that is in a moment, but we've seen it before. It's this temple in Egypt that Apocalypse uses when he is cocooning and being reborn. And then we've got Scott and Jean in a holding cell. So Strife goes to visit them and to continue his psychological torture of the pair. So he comes with baby food, and in this disgusting scene, he scoops up some of this baby food and pushes it into Scott's mouth, and he can't move. So there's some kind of energy field that is inhibiting his freedom of movement, so he's not able to defend himself from this treatment. And Strife exits, asking or making the statement, if I can easily understand what it requires to wean a child, so should you. Until next time. So further clues, crumbs here in terms of the question of who Strife really is and what is going on with all this infant and infant care themed statements he's been making to Scott and Jean over the last few parts of the crossover. So then he goes back out to Zero and he asks him to teleport them to the land of the pharaohs. And so Zero obeys, and here we are now at this particular temple, the temple of Bani Maza in Egypt, and Strife blasts his way into the temple, and here he is now faced by Apocalypse's guardians, the Dark Riders, but he easily bests them in these few short pages, sending them scattered. And then he comes right up to Apocalypse's rebirth machine technology, opens it, and then out comes the monster Apocalypse. So let's read Strife's dialogue here. His purple dialogue: "Come out, Time Walker, come to me now, uncertain, unknowing, weak, childlike. Come to me as I came to you, a babe with need for succor. Come to me," he says. Apocalypse. And Apocalypse doesn't know who he is. Who are you? As you are the devil of yesterday who haunts my tomorrows, I am the demon of tomorrow who's come for cold retribution. I am Strife, he says. Remember it, for that is the name of the man who's going to kill you. And then, next part of the crossover, X-Force number 17, when we are going to get a throwdown, a battle between Strife and Apocalypse. So we've come to just past the midpoint of the crossover, and the rest of the crossover with the MLF out of the way, with the whole question of who shot Professor X pretty much solved. The focus is going to fall squarely on Strife and his vendetta in the remaining issues of the crossover. At the letters page here, concerned with Jim Lee's last couple of issues, X-Men number 10 and 11. And here we've got a nice little panel of Bishop, Wolverine and Cable. And there you go. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men number 15, adjectiveless X-Men number 15. If you liked the video, please do so in YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.